best bass
Yep.
on the entire.
For sure.
Get out of here,
But that's not because it stands.
We're CDR, I'm Matt, he's Bryn, and this is KG.
King Gizzards and the Lizard Wizards.
Yep. This is their 16th album.
Oh, you did look it up?
Well, it's one of those weird factoids that I just sort of know. And I know they started in 2012, so they've released 16 albums in 8 years, because this came out last year, so...
Ooh, I got stats for you.
Okay, stats away, I love stats.
16 studios.
Yep.
7 live.
Okay.
2 complications and...
Compilations.
Compilations,
They
sorry.
might have had a few complications.
They certainly have at the start of the year. And 2 EPs. 3 of those live ones were dropped at the start of this year. And all donations went to... 100% of it went to the bushfires.
Ah, okay. Also saw that they released a new single. That wasn't even on KG, like, recently.
They've released 2 for the next one, which I can't wait. Do you know what the title of the next one's going to be?
No.
Take a wild guess.
LW?
Yes.
Is it really?
It really is.
Okay, it's the sister album to KG.
Yeah. This is the second version. So KG, which is also subtitled as the exploration into microtonal
tuning.
Microtonal
This
tuning.
isn't their first foray into microtonal.
No, the first one being Flying Microtonal Banana,
Which has obviously your favorite song on it.
which would be...
Rattlesnake, rattlesnake, That would actually have been a pretty good hype up song if it didn't go for like 7 fucking minutes. It's a pretty cool song. You instantly recognize it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll have to listen to it because I do not recognize that.
I reckon it would be one of their bigger tracks.
Bigger tracks, okay.
It was one of the few tracks I knew before coming into this album.
Or do you also want to know that they're bringing out 3 albums next year?
Why not, right? Nothing will surpass... They had a year, I think, a couple of years back where they released 5.
Yeah, they promised they would release 5 and they dropped them all. But this one, the next 3 coming out, one's going to be chilled, one's going to be jazzy, and one's going to be more microtonal.
Go back to thrash metal. Infest the
And
rat's
more
nest.
into the thrash metals, into the rats. What was it? The rat nest?
Infest the rat's nest. I was driving around yesterday and had Triple J on, and they had something from that on. I'm like, yeah, damn, I wish we were reviewing that album. Alright, so what was your week like with KG?
Well, my week is hectic, so it's really the last 3 days of...
Okay, you binged it.
Binged it, and I think about 4 times today I listened to it, and I try to do it with just going randomly on shuffle because it's a lot of the songs after a while just kind of sound like each other, and you sit there just like, how does this one start? Because with the what is the monotonal guitar, microtonal.
It's not the microtonal guitar that is the thing that doesn't distinguish between the tracks. It's the fact that literally from about Automation through to Odd Life,
Yep.
you have that same drum beat.
Yeah, all the way through. Well, I actually thought that Minimum Brain Size, I thought that was...
Same as Automation.
Yes, I thought it was, but it's not.
So the problem between those tracks is the fact that not only is the drum motif the same, but you have that hammer on, hammer off, that motif actually features quite a lot through the album, and it particularly prominent in Automation and then Minimum Brain Size.
Yeah.
I had the same thing. I'm like listening to track 3, I'm like,
It sounded so much, I'm like, I swear I heard this before.
so you had to mix it up in order to digest it.
To digest it and then sit there and listen to the song and be like, this is, which one am I listening to? Oh, this is Odd Life, or...
Yeah, I must admit, even the distinction between like Intrasport and Odd Life was a tricky one.
Did you? I did not find it hard to pick out Intrasport. It's
not the start of Intrasport, but when Intrasport changes to Odd Life.
Oh yeah, the separation between the two.
So like I only ever listened to the album in completion. There was no segregated listens. And I went down the rabbit hole a bit on this one. I reckon I listened to it about 15 times.
It's pretty easy to listen to it 15 times. Because once I finished listening to it once, it was easy to listen to it again.
Yeah, so it doesn't demand a ton of you as you're listening to it. It's not abrasive.
No.
So you can just have it on and be doing other things. There's another couple of bands that I actually don't mind because they have something of a zen quality to them, like Silver Sun pickups, for instance. But the fact that the drums are repetitive throughout means that you're always sort of
in the same beat,
that same Austin Powers 60s psychedelic beat the whole way through.
Yeah, well, I was going to say there's not a lot I can really say about the musical side, considering it all kind of was easy, basic drumming, and then just really hectic.
So like when I
with
went
the
into
guitar,
it, like I had that opinion, but like I think over the course of that many listens, I was able to distinguish a couple of things. I actually think the songs are good. I think the album doesn't do enough to differentiate between them.
Songs,
Literally from Automation through to Odd Life.
Yep.
Could just be a single track, right? And it wouldn't seem that odd.
Oh yeah, I can see why, because the one after Odd Life is Honey, and that is definitely just starts out completely different, almost like a deep southern.
Well, it stops. The drums at that point, from the last two tracks, the drums are different.
Yep.
The drums in Honey are straight up. The drums in The Hungry Wolf of Fate are actually far more expressive, slower. It's a lot more dramatic.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, it's basically a party for the previous friggin' how many tracks? 7 or 8 tracks. It's just it's that same Austin Powers drum beat party that goes through. But the thing is that the songs each have their own little signatures. It does take a lot longer for them, I think, to implement and come to the top. So, like, on my first listen, it was fun, but I'm like, oh man, I feel like I'm listening to an album that doesn't ever change or do enough to express itself track by track.
Yeah.
And then by track 15, listen through 15, there's like a really, really good batch of tracks. And then the other tracks I don't necessarily hate because of the recurring motifs. I can kind of sort of just lean into it. So I don't know if maybe over time my senses have dulled on repeated listens and I've just accepted some of the...
No, I think you're picking up as you go along a lot more, because I feel like I did as well. Yeah. So you can distinct the difference between when the drum beat does pick up or change, or when the guitar is doing...
Or when the vocals are doing something interesting. So, like, for instance, you have Straws in the Wind, which is kind of fun. It's a bit more expressive. It's acoustic. It's got that microtonal feel to it.
Yeah, that bit of a classic coming off.
Is it all ending? And lines like, I can see the Beelzebub Cheshire grin. It's just straight out of, like... It's just psychedelic, right?
It really is, yeah.
But then there's, like, a set of tracks from Some of Us through to Intrasport that I actually think are really quite good. And on repeated listens, I get to the middle of the album, I'm like, yeah, I'm in for this. Like, Some of Us has that chorus where, some of us can, some of us don't. And it's just the music hits basically all the time with the singing, which is also a recurring motif. But I think that's a King Gizzard thing rather than a KG the album type thing.
Well, with Some of Us.
So Some of Us does that, but like literally most tracks on the album, the singer is singing
along
with the guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
They're all the same, but I think that's a fairly...
It's fairly obvious and prompt in Some of Us where you just...
where the chorus bangs.
It just bangs with yeah.
But I actually quite like that, but I think King Gizzard does a lot of that through a lot of their back catalogue. That's my understanding of it. Not having listened to literally all of their music, which I think at this stage is...
It's going to be hard, yeah.
Because by the time you've listened to it, they've released 3 more albums. But then you have tracks like Ontology.
Yeah, you want to dwell into that a little bit? Did you read deep into any of their lyrics?
I think our good friend Tom York from Radiohead would have enjoyed this track.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, what is the meaning? What is the meaning? And then the chorus is sort of the change up from the verses is like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't
thinking
too hard. Stop thinking.
Yeah, thinking is overrated. Yeah.
I really liked Ontology, actually.
I did too, but I'm not going to lie. Their lyrics when I went through these were just, I think, a little too much for me to read into. Straw in the Wind is, a lot of people are claiming it's them singing a bit about the COVID.
Yep.
A couple of the songs as well as like Automation, they reckon there is stepping into that subject as well.
Yeah, it's sort of a self-evident expression on Automation and minimum brain size as well.
A minimum brain size, I love that. I was like, that's
pathetic though. You're weaker than you know. I can't help but think it's it's a political stab. I feel like it'd have to be
a political stab.
Yeah, or he really hates someone in.
That's what I thought. It's like it has to be to someone or just to a group of people because it's pretty harsh. Too many bickies.
Yeah, and the thing is that like that chorusy bit where it's like you're weaker than has like some cool microtonal acoustic guitars in the background, and it's actually kind of nice vocally that part. And I think listens, I look forward to that part and ignore the fact that it sounds
exactly
has a lot of similarities with Automation.
Besides the vocals, the music wasn't that much difference, but yeah, in the Automation, it was a bit more rough, or you could say like echo, and then it comes into minimum brain size where he actually does sing a little bit more, a little more melody, more harmony.
Yeah, it's sort of the singing breaks free of the music.
Yeah. What was your favorite song?
I was torn on what my favorite track was. Hey, I mean, I've got a little heart next to the Hungry Wolf of Fate, to be fair, but
I think you put that down pretty quick, didn't you?
Yeah, that was a good track on the first listen as well as the 15th.
I think it's a great song to finish the album on too.
In terms of my favorite, it really is a split vote, I think, between Some of Us, Ontology, and Intrasport.
Yeah,
and as I mentioned, there's this packet of it's that packet of songs. Those 3 tracks, I think, are the absolute best that this album has. It's the core of their best ideas, I think, in that particular album.
So which one, from where to where?
From Some of Us through to Intrasport, including Ontology. Those 3 tracks, I reckon, are the highlights of the album. And then like the Hungry Wolf of Fate is a great way to close the album off.
There is going to be the next one coming out in February, which we will do just to knock it out of the park. I noticed at the end of the Hungry Wolf is it kind of just drops off. It kind of fades out and it goes into this little sound that I was like, what was that? And then it will feed straight in because we'll see more of that that motionless change from one song to the next.
Oh man, could you imagine if like the last 2 tracks, or especially the last track, is representative of what
the next one is? Oh my god, I fucking love it. I would be so happy.
Yeah.
It'd be. Oh, I wonder what it would finish like if that's going to be the start.
Maybe back into Automation.
Back into the Arabian Nights with the sitars.
Yeah, the sitars, the pan flutes, and the electric something or others that you put up on your list.
No, the harmonica, a baglama. Can someone tell me what a baglama is? We'll look at it later.
So what were your least favourite tracks on the album then?
Odd Life? No, I'm not joking.
Okay, so the joke Odd Life is probably mine.
Yours, and then Intrasport would probably be mine.
We're just shooting each other down.
Yeah. Although you read into Intrasport a lot deeper, thinking it's more of a man on a manic hunt for a end of life.
Yeah, I get the feeling it's someone depressively reflecting on themselves and then wanting to express that violently at some point.
Yeah.
That's what I get from that track.
And just finish off like Kurt Cobain.
Yeah, except with a few other bodies.
Yeah. Well, that's most people, they go out.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that like the song comes across sweetly, right? The song isn't offensive, there's no abrasiveness. But I just, reading into the lyrics, maybe I've read way too deep, and maybe old mate who wrote the song's like, nah, bro, it's just, I had a bad day.
They just had Who knows?
Who knows?
Yep.
You've got a line in Some of Us, which is literally rigor mortis fossil tortoise, right?
What does that mean? Rigor mortis fossil tortoise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like... and then like human comet dinosaur inside a simulation.
Yeah.
Automation. You gotta tip your hat to some just out of this fucking world lyric choice.
It's great. They pop up everywhere. There's just these little lines throughout the whole album. You're just like, what the?
Well, that I reckon stands out in Automation.
That one, yeah, that one.
Listen to that track without hearing.
Yeah.
That.
And you sit there and be like, what the fuck are you?
What
does that even mean? What's that supposed to mean? And then it moves to Some of Us.
Yeah.
Which we both think is just like
I liked this track.
Yeah, some of us are going to live, some of us going to die. You could say it's almost like the second part to the Straws in the Wind, saying like, yeah, like just get on with it.
Yeah. This is the track that I think best utilizes the singer singing with the riff in the chorus. I think it punches really well.
Marching to the beat.
Yeah, it does. It has a really strange pattern through the chorus, and that's why I think it's actually the most interesting. Probably the second best example on the album would be on The Hungry Wolf of Fate.
Yeah.
Where that just punches you in the face. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it.
Damn it. And the album's starting being that I already said, like the Arabian Night, Indian pub.
So, like, there are some really good examples where they actually, I think, best use the microtonal stuff. And I mentioned to you that one of the better examples, funnily enough, is in that intro track. It's this interesting melodic piece that just has this ugly microtonal note. It's so ugly as to be interesting, and I think repeated listens, I enjoy it. And the note itself stands out the first time it's played, but then on the second, on repeated measures, they bring in flutes over the top of it to sweeten the sound, but that ugliness is still there and it's still interesting. I think it's a really good use.
Yeah, it does sort of soften the blow, because when you just hear it by itself, it does give you that little bit of And being a guitarist, or as you like to say, quintessential guitarist.
I can play a guitar. I can't play a microtonal.
You would like to give it a go?
As long as I don't have to buy one, because it's like I can't be bothered putting extra frets on my guitar, and I don't want to deal with that.
You did point it out last week at the start when we listened to the first album. Listen to those, the first track. You listen to these off-key notes, just like a fuzz. For where you would think like a beginner is playing the guitar, and you're just like, haven't tuned. It's just like completely out, and you're just like, how does this even work?
So I think that's a good example of the KGLW, that first track. I think an example where they probably do it a little bit much is in that Straws in the Wind. There's a set of acoustic runs which could have sounded nice. They've added microtonals to it, and I think it ends up coming off muddy. Yeah, less enjoyable. I think when it's a feature rather than really heavily integrated, I find it much more interesting. And I think it can sometimes suffer from that muddy sound because you have such a small fret space to work with. You're every chance of playing a bung note. In fact, you are intentionally. You're
very much going to play.
Enough.
Playing the bung note the right way.
Basically, yeah. Funnily enough.
And then we get brain size. You want to talk about that?
I mean, I reckon it's a cheeky stab.
T.
It's a
Mr. T.
Big T, who's been kicked out of the White House.
He loves his peaches.
I mean, you got lyrics like, "It's pathetic though, you're weaker than you know."
Yeah.
You don't have a say anymore. I can't help but feel it's something like that. You know, I might be completely off. It might be. Again,
no, I think that's a good hit.
Political vibes.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
I think these guys do like to do very deep, dark, or coded.
Yeah, coded's probably the best way to put it, to be perfectly honest. Because I don't know the meaning of rigor mortis fossil tortoise.
No.
Someone out there does.
No.
But it's not me.
Not this guy.
I think the main criticism we both had was the fact that the tracks sometimes don't do enough to distinguish between each other.
Yeah, it's very much a blend. You put it on and you don't know where you are. And I tried listening to the album in a shuffle so I can really pick out what song I was listening to, because I was having a lot of trouble just trying to figure out where I was in the album.
Yeah, so I think it's then important to note that the last two tracks on the album actually break free.
Yep, they're completely separate from each other.
Honey has just straight up drums. There's not this weird pandering 60s vibe.
I almost give it a bit of a deep south sort of blues feel
Except
to
for
it.
That rock and bass line, which I think is one of the best bass lines on the entire album. Comfortably. And then you have the last track, which is far more dramatic in the way that the drums are sort of played.
Dramatic would be the right word, I reckon, yeah.
Good track all around. So, any lasting thoughts?
My final thoughts is It's not a bad album. I'm hoping to see what LW is going to be like, and if it really just puts an end to this sort of like possibly a part 1 and a part 2 to what should be like one album.
Yeah.
It'd be,
new ideas they have.
I'm glad we don't have to wait 2-3 years for it, because they just pop out albums fucking continuously.
As a King Gizzard fan, I suspect they sit back, and even if they have a bad album, it's like, oh, we're only 4 months away from this one. What's it actually matter?
Oh, we're working on 3 right now, so why does it matter?
Yeah.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah. So you don't want to review it?
No, your rating at 6.5.
Yeah, and as I mentioned to you earlier, I think on the first listen I would have set it at about a 5.
Yep.
I listened to it enough, and I think it actually does gestate well over time, to a point where I was comfortable to give it a 6.5. I think there's enough interesting ideas. It's just let down by a sameness that pervades a lot of the tracks.
Cool. If you want to listen to microtonal guitars for the first time, this is probably an awesome album to go with, being just the riffs, the rhythm, and the hammer on and hammer offs all the way through it. If you want a cheeky little part in there that I reckon I said to Matt was Ontology. I thought it sounded a bit like Dropkick Murphys Shipping Up to Boston. He didn't pick it up, so I must be the weird one.
There's nothing in there that sounds like a shanty. You enjoy it.
I feel a bit Irish on that one, but it's good to go. Okay, next week is Spacey Jane. Sunlight.
And what do they do?
It's rock. You know what? It was hard to try and find another Aussie to listen to that came out last year and that I actually wanted to give half a crack. I was like, either that or it was going to be something with Kate, or it was going to be AC/DC's new album. And I was like, fuck. And it was like, or it was going to be Bring Me the Horizon, but we've both listened to that separately. Like, we don't need to.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to get to a point where we're doing a lot of just male rock,
or like band related.
Like we really would just want to listen to things we want to listen to.
Yeah, so I reckon I'll shake that up next week.
It'll be good. We should definitely change.
Throw us under the bus.
Yeah, sick. Let's do some weird shit.
We need an album to challenge us and maybe to suck, because it might not. Yeah. It might not suck.
I just imagine what's going to happen if we do a pop album and it's just all auto-tune and
but
shitty.
Maybe it's fucking cool. You don't know.
Maybe 1 or 2 songs.
Or maybe I'll get out 100 decks finally.
Who knows? Maybe he will just do the Evermore, new Taylor Swift.
You know, I have considered it, but not yet. It's Aussie month.
It is.
So I'll find you something to beat your head down with next week, and it'll be Aussie.
Sick. Something to throw on headphones so I don't have to listen to my kid.
Very good.
Love you, Alfie.
We've been CDRs. This is the last time we're going to record.
Oi, is your mic on?
It's not blinking at me.
Oh, fucking thank God. Okay. See you guys.